before there were empires, before there were prophets, before Rome, before Egypt reached its height. There was a list, not a myth, not a legend, a record. And it begins with a sentence that still unsettles historians to this day. Kingship descended from heaven. That's how the Sumerian King List opens. Not metaphorically, not poetically, directly. The Sumerian King List is a real artifact. Multiple copies of it have been found on clay tablets in ancient Mesopotamia, dating back to around 2100 BC. It is not written like mythology. It is structured like a ledger. City, king, length of reign, over and over. But then you start reading the numbers. The first king listed, Alulim of Eridu, is said to have ruled for 28,800 years. The next king, 36,000 years. Another, 43,200 years. These are not typos. They are deliberate entries. And the list continues like this for several rulers before something changes. Then a line appears. Then the flood swept over. After that, the reign lengths dropped dramatically, from tens of thousands of years to hundreds, eventually to something that resembles human lifespans. That shift alone is one of the strangest transitions in ancient recorded history. So what is this document? A myth disguised as a record? A symbolic timeline? Or something else? Let's slow down and think critically. Ancient cultures often used exaggerated numbers symbolically. The Sumerians used a base 60 number system. Large, rounded numbers like 3,600 or 43,200 were mathematically significant in their culture. So one theory suggests these numbers weren't literal. They represented cycles, astronomical time, divine order. But here's the complication. Later kings on the same list are historically verified. Their names appear in other archaeological findings. Cities mentioned in the king list have been excavated, which means this isn't pure fantasy. It's a strange hybrid of mythology and history woven together in one document. That's what makes it powerful. The king list doesn't read like someone trying to tell a bedtime story. It reads like someone trying to legitimize authority, because that's what it may have been. The list does something politically brilliant. It unifies different cities under one narrative of divine kingship. It says, power comes from heaven. It moves from city to city, and whoever holds it is chosen. This wasn't just record keeping. This was ideological engineering. The idea that kingship descended from heaven wasn't random. It reinforced obedience. It framed rulers as part of cosmic order. But we still haven't dealt with the flood. Then the flood swept over. Sound familiar? The Sumerians recorded a great flood long before the Hebrew Bible was written. The Epic of Gilgamesh, another Mesopotamian text, also describes a catastrophic flood. Multiple cultures across the ancient world preserve flood narratives. Does that mean a global flood occurred? Careful. Shared myths do not automatically equal shared events, but they do suggest a powerful collective memory of catastrophic flooding in early civilizations. The king list places the flood as a dividing line between eras: pre-flood kings, almost godlike lifespans; post-flood kings, increasingly human. It reads like a transition from divine age to human age, which raises an uncomfortable question. Were these early kings meant to be interpreted as literal humans or semi-divine figures? Ancient Mesopotamian culture did not sharply separate gods and rulers the way modern societies do. Kings were often seen as representatives of the gods, chosen, endorsed, sometimes even part divine in mythology. But here's where things get interesting. The king list does not mention the Anunnaki, not directly. It doesn't describe alien beings. It doesn't describe genetic engineering. It doesn't describe humans created for labor. Those interpretations come much later, largely from modern speculative writers. That distinction matters. Because if you blur mythology, archaeology, and modern interpretation together too quickly, you lose clarity. And clarity is power. The King List, on its own, is mysterious enough. It preserves a world view where time was different, where rulership was cosmic, where catastrophe reset civilization. It reflects how early humans understood order. They saw the sky move in precise cycles. They saw floods destroy settlements. They saw power shift between cities. To them, the universe was structured. And if the universe was structured, then authority must also be structured, so they recorded it. Now here's the final layer. Why does this document still fascinate us? Because it sits at the border of known and unknown. It's not fantasy like dragons. It's not strictly verified history like Roman census data. It's something in between. And humans are magnetized by that boundary. The Sumerian King List forces us to confront something uncomfortable. Ancient civilizations were not primitive. They were deeply organized, mathematically advanced, politically strategic, and they understood narrative power. They understood that if you control the origin story of authority, you control society. Kingship descended from heaven. That sentence alone shaped generations. Whether the early reign lengths were symbolic, exaggerated, or something else entirely, the real genius of the King List wasn't in the numbers, it was in the message. Power is not random. Power is ordained. Power has a source. And that idea has echoed through human civilization ever since. From pharaohs to emperors to divine right monarchies to modern political mythology, the Sumerians may not have built skyscrapers, but they built one of the most influential ideas in human history. That authority comes from above, and that belief is far more enduring than any king.